What about disease now and nutrition? These are the main 6 that people usually discuss in relation to undernutrition. And the first 3 of those, HIV, tuberculosis and measles, that usually are involved with the interaction between immune function and disease. So you can see here nutritional deficiencies here, immune suppression here, which means you then exacerbate HIV replication and therefore the disease gets worse. And the same is also true for tuberculosis. Got some fantastic data here going back to the last World War, whereby we had 2 groups of prisoners. A Soviet group who were only given the Red Cross daily allowance of 1350 kilocalories, and the UK group who were given that allowance plus an extra allowance, giving a total therefore 2,700. And you can see that nearly 20% of the Soviet prisoners got TB, and only 1.2% of the UK soldiers did. A difference, as you can see, of 15.8-fold in terms of TB. So TB therefore is exacerbated by undernutrition, as is measles. You can see this immune suppression very quickly. T lymphocytes, the white blood cells, which you defend yourselves, and these are 2 subtypes, CD4 and CD8. In fact, your initial body defense is based upon CD4, and if you compare these, a well-nourished and a malnourished, you can see a very large difference between those 2 here, and again in the CD4 again, large differences here. And the ratio also changes from over 2 to under 2, which again is a measure of immune function. So undernutrition therefore very clearly relates to suppression of the immune response and therefore increased exacerbation of disease. Right, diarrhea is a major cause of undernutrition and impacts on 3 separate ways. First of all, dietary intake usually goes down by between 15 and 25%. Secondly, there's more rapid movement of the nutrients through the alimentary canal and usually therefore decreased intake. Because you've got often get fevers associated with diarrhea, you then get increased breakdown, so-called catabolism, and then increased BMR stands for basal metabolic rate too. So all those 3 things therefore usually will mean that your undernutrition will increase. Some data from Brazil shows that if you look at the diarrheal burden of under 2s and rate those with low burdens to those with heavy burdens at age 7, you can show a deficit of growth of 3.6 centimetres, which if you convert it then to Z scores, it means that a child who originally was stunted at -2 would then improve to only minus 1.08. So quite a dramatic improvement therefore would occur in terms of their nutritional status just because of diarrhea. And diarrhea also associates with respiratory tract infections, so 1/4 of all respiratory tract infections are caused by or due to diarrhea. If you supplement children with diarrhea, you can again show dramatic improvements. This is Colombian data now, based upon quartiles here. And you can see that this was over 3 years. They started intervening at 6 months, up to 3 years of age. And you can see over the right-hand side the impact of those interventions. So children who therefore had heavy loads of diarrhea and who were supplemented were, at the end of that project, some 5 centimetres taller or longer than those who are not supplemented. So therefore supplementation can work extremely well or efficiently in overcoming the diarrhea. They receive an extra 200 kilocalories here of a protein mix. What we believe, going back to the original diagram you saw about disease and nutrition, is that some diseases cause gut mucosal damage. So what we think happens is the mother will give the child unsafe foods which are contaminated with pathogens, and those physically damage the small intestine. And when you do that, it means therefore maldigestion occurs, absorption doesn't occur correctly, and therefore poor growth is the end result of that, and also nutrition, of course, as well. And our work in the Gambia shows that if you look at the 2 to 15-month-old child, that 64% of all height and weight faltering is in fact caused by gut mucosal damage. This is a slide now of the gut, and you can see the normal gut has these villi. These villi release enzymes which therefore break down your carbohydrates, fats and proteins to smaller molecules which can then be absorbed. And of course they give you a large surface area within which to absorb your foods. When you have worms, your gut becomes damaged. As you can see, it's basically flattened. And therefore the enzyme activity is lost, the absorptive capacity is lost, and therefore foods are lost because of it. So basically what happens therefore is the alimentary canal becomes like a sieve, and you are therefore losing nutrients because of it. So giving people more food, if they've got gut parasites, is not going to solve their nutritional problems, because they're going to be excreting lots of those nutrients, not absorbing them properly. we can quite easily check whether or not your guts or my guts are in fact damaged or not. All we do is give them a sugar solution which contains two sugars, lactulose, which is a big molecule, and mannitol, which is a smaller molecule. So the large molecule is the orange one there, and the Cambridge blue is small one, refers to then mannitol. And neither of these two sugars are digested by the body at all. They're excreted as they stand. So you can see the small molecule will go through with the healthy villi, but of course the large molecule lactulose will not go through. Whereas if the guts are damaged, both will of course go through. So therefore you collect their urine over some 3-hour period. You then measure the ratio of lactulose to mannitol, and if their guts are good, the ratio is low. If their guts are damaged, the ratio is high. And you can show in Bangladesh that children as young as 3 months have very high levels of lactulose mannitol, i.e. their guts have been damaged because the mother has not been exclusively breastfeeding and hence is giving them therefore pathogens. This just shows you some of our work there, giving a child, this is my postdoc Rie, who's a fluent Bangla speaker, putting on the urine bag. Can you see it here? She can do this in under 45 seconds. I've timed her. Then you give the child something to drink, they pee, and hence you then examine it. So you take all the urine in Bangladesh, you send it back to the UK and examine it then in our laboratory back in Cambridge. If you only want to know that my main job in life is to try and persuade people that gut parasites, worms, are very important nasty agents. I'm going to show you a few pictures now, some which are reasonably docile, some which are not so docile. So we'll go through them quite quickly. So roundworm. This is a big worm. Goes to up to 40 centimetres in length, about that length, and is about as thick as, a bit thicker than ordinary spaghetti. Those who eat Japanese noodles will be even more accurate. Okay? If you don't like sort of pictures, then look away now, because what you can do is give a drug, not the normal one we usually use, which causes all the worms to release whole. So you can then see what the impact of that is. This. So a child can therefore excrete around about 3 kg, if you like, in one session. Think about it. Those worms in your guts, okay, they're feeding off your guts, they're damaging your guts. How can a child survive with that sort of worm burden? But it's not just one worm, unfortunately. There are 3 nasties. Whipworm is number 2. As you can see, how much the world's population are affected by these. Number 3 is hookworm. That's an even more nasty one. These are, in fact, hookworm here. Can you see them? Hooked into the gut here. And they literally hook into the gut. They take blood from the individual, and every 6 to 8 hours they migrate on to a new spot. And even worse is they excrete an anticoagulant, so more blood is lost after they've moved to their new spot. This just shows the head of one of the species of hookworm. There are single species for these first 2 and 2 species for hookworm, reflecting their different origins. One was New World, one was Old World, but now they're in fact intermingled everywhere. So if you combine all those now, you find that half the world's population, over 3 billion people, have 1 or 2 or 3 worms. And the final point is these worms reside in different parts of the gut. They're not competing for your space. Therefore, you can have 1, 2 or all 3 of them. So in the tea gardens, our work there shows that around about 30% of women have all 3 types of worms. So basically what happens is that these worms, therefore, cause maldigestion. They also feed upon you. They also feed on blood. And of course, they cause an inflammatory response. You therefore get an immune reaction to that, which causes also reduced appetite. So one of the immediate effects you find if you deworm children is that appetite increases. And you also find that you get increasing muscularization in the alimentary canal because it has to therefore pass on the worms. You therefore require more muscle mass to do that. So again, it's not a useful thing in a general situation.